All right. Good afternoon to those of you on the East Coast. Good morning to those of you on the West Coast. I'm your host, Brandon Troy, host and co creator of Movers and Shakers Unlimited. Thank you so much for joining us. If you saw in the title, I'm here at Annapolis Comic Con. It's happening today, actually, in Annapolis, as the title suggests. But we're going to be talking about some other things today, being that it is This Week in Review and there is a lot to dig into. But I will not be alone in talking about a lot of the topics that we will be discussing today. So it's my pleasure to, welcome back my partner in crime, my co-host, Mr. Spillman. Let me bring him on.
Good
Spills
morning,
was
good
good,
morning, good
man.
afternoon.
Good
How's
morning.
everybody
Good morning.
doing?
How you doing, man? Happy
I'm
Saturday.
doing good, man. Happy Saturday. It's a beautiful day out. I got out, got a little breakfast already, so I'm ready to get to these
Oh, you
topics.
got a little better than me, man. It's a little breezy for me. I don't know, no, for you, maybe it's a little warmer on your end, but where I'm at, it's a little breezy.
No, yeah, for sure, for sure.
All right, so as I said, this week in review, a lot to dig into. So let's hit the ground running. I'll start with the first story. And talking about some of the things that happened over the course of this week. There was some news in the world of film and talking about like a highly anticipated sequel that is still being still in the workings as we speak right now, and that is none other than Beetlejuice. There was news this week, over the course of this week, that as you can see down in the title, that Jenna Ortega is in talks for Beetlejuice 2. So in this story, apparently Jenna is in talks to take over the role, that was made. Well, not take over the role by Winona Ryder, but she's actually, from what I understand, going to be playing the daughter, of her character in this upcoming sequel. And we at with the sequel that we have here, we also will have none other than Michael Keaton returning in that title role. So, your thoughts on this, Spillman? I'm a big fan of the original film. If we're talking about the 90s, I'm a fan of the cartoon as well. And believe it or not, I'm going to age myself a little bit. I was actually introduced to the cartoon before the movie came out. So it was funny, as a youngster and seeing the actual film itself. I was like, oh, cool. They made a live action, Beetlejuice a film. And my mom had to straighten me out. I was like, so the movie came out first. So Spillman, what are your thoughts on this on this development of having her join?
So, I'm gonna take it back even further. I first got introduced to Beetlejuice from those posters they used to have in Chuck E. Cheese, where Chuck E. Cheese played the character in the movie. Like they had a Chuck E. Cheese dressed up like Beetlejuice. So I go even further back. But I'm interested in this. Gianna Ortega, she looks like Christina Ricci looked at that time. So, to me, I think it's a good. I'm sorry, not Christina Ricci, but Winona Ryder. Excuse me, guys. Excuse me. But she looks like Winona Ryder did at that time. She looks like a classic Burton character. Like she looks like Coraline or one of those kind of other people. She looks like a girl you'd meet at a Hot Topic in a mall or something like that for sure. Um, I think it's a good choice. It's interesting, to bring back Keaton, because now I think he'll look more like the Beetlejuice character because he's older, I guess. So I guess he wouldn't look as, clearly like just a regular dude. So that'll be interesting. I've liked a lot of the stuff that Michael Keaton's done recently. I liked the show he did, Dope Sick. That was a good show. I really like Birdman because that was interesting. He was even good in that as the Vulture in the first Spider-Man movie. So he still got his acting chops. I'm not too familiar with Gianna Ortega's work. I don't know too much, but she looks like her. And with casting, if people think that you look like him, that's like
Well,
50%
I'll
of
give
the
you a little
gig.
background.
Hmm.
She actually currently can be seen in the Scream franchise as it stands right now. She's
Okay.
been in the last. She was in the last installment, and she's in the current installment, which, by the way, opened this weekend. So there you go.
Hmm.
But yeah, she's a new addition to the franchise for Scream. However, she was also in Wednesday. So for those of you that
Okay. Yeah.
are
It's
not
all in
aware,
that
but she
same
was
lane.
in Wednesday. Yeah, she is basically in the same wheelhouse. And from what I understand, according to the story, Tim Burton was actually executive producer of Wednesday. So it'll
Hmm.
be her. It won't be her first time working. With Tim Burton. But just as you said, there is a resemblance, there with
Hmm.
herself and Winona Ryder. So, it's not much of a stretch there. It always makes it more seamless when you have actors that do resemble one another when they are, supposed to be related. Sometimes the opposite happens, and, it doesn't matter how talented the actor or actress is. It's hard to really connect yourself to the story if the characters look nothing alike. And this
Yeah.
is also goes into films or projects when we're talking about like biopics and things like that, where you have actors and actresses that are supposed to be playing real life characters, and a lot of times they don't really look anything like the folks that they're supposed to portray. And it
Hmm.
can go one or two ways. It can go in one direction where the person that they've selected looks so much like that person, that person that they're supposed to be portraying, that real life person, but they don't really have the acting chops to play the role. And then
Hmm.
vice versa, have someone who's super talented, but they were just miscast because they look nothing like the character, and so it distracts you from the actual story. But just like you said, if we're talking Wednesday, that dynamic, that kind of like darkness, weirdness, that kind of comedic slant with like dark humor plays
Hmm.
right into the wheelhouse of stuff that she's done before, with prior projects that she's done. Wednesday being a clear example of that. So
Yeah,
I'm
for sure.
interested. It'll be interesting to see. And as I said, according to the title, she's in talks to do it. So it's still an ongoing thing. And I mean, Beetlejuice, man, Beetlejuice has been this sequel apparently has been in development for quite a while. And just as you said, a lot of the actors that you have involved, and this is not just Jenna, but if we're also speaking Michael Keaton, I mean, they're all busy. So, hopefully they're able to get this going, because, it's not like they're going to be waiting around, to get, for this project to get done, because they're still, doing other things. The MCU is still, alive and kicking. And, he may get a call. Who knows? He may get a call,
Yeah.
to join back up. I mean, we got what? We got Secret Wars. We got all of these other multiversal things happening. So who
Hmm.
knows? They may ask him to come back. So, but do you have any other final thoughts before we move on
I have a
to our
quick
next
final
story?
thought.
Okay,
So
go ahead, go
when they
for
cast the Movers and Shakers movie, who
it.
plays Brandon?
That is a good question. And then and you know what? I haven't really spent a lot of time thinking about it, but um, if it's right now, maybe Michael B. Jordan. That may be a little bit of a stretch. That might be a little
You
bit
think
of a
Michael B.
stretch.
Jordan?
I don't know.
Yeah.
Maybe Michael B. Jordan. Maybe I'm trying to think. Brain fart on the gentleman's name right now. But I'll think on it. I'll think on it. There are a couple of people that I would say are in the wheelhouse of someone who I feel could pull off being the host and co-creator of movers and shakers. So we'll see. I don't know. I have to let it marinate a little bit. So,
Yeah.
but good question. Good question.
Oh yeah, for sure, for sure.
But hopping into the next story today, I want to get into speaking of the MCU, that we heard news, and this is not that shocking, but it's good to get the confirmation, is that John Bernthal is actually returning in to the MCU as none other than Frank Castle, aka the Punisher. So, in a story that made the rounds this week, as I said, we got there was a news that dropped that Bernthal would be returning to that role, and he'll be returning into the Disney Plus series that they're doing with Daredevil, known as Daredevil Born Again. Now, Daredevil Born Again, unlike many of the other shows, they're going to far expand beyond the quote unquote like mini series type of format that we've seen with prior shows. So, Spillman, what are your thoughts on seeing Bernthal come back? I have some thoughts on it, but I'll punt it over to you first to see what you think on the matter.
So I just want to start by saying that we have to big up Daredevil Born Again just as the story, because Born Again is the greatest Daredevil story ever told. We know what it is. Like, it's the story that was so good that they started making Batman comics again. They was like, wait, we could do this with Batman. It's so good. We'll get the guy Frank Miller and he's going to do this. So we already know this is going to be a great relaunch of the Marvel Daredevil universe, because we were all very sad when those shows ended. We're happy that they're getting some of these castings back. I did see, unfortunately, that the people that played Karen Page and Foggy Nelson are not going to come back. But I think that the girl that played Karen Page, especially, they're going to have some things happen to her in this story that, like, I don't know if she could portray that kind of a character. I think they're going to get someone a little bit different for the Karen Page character, but no spoilers or anything. But the Born Again story is just so great. The guy, what's his name? He plays a great Punisher. John Bernthal. He plays a great Punisher. He was on that. He was on that show on HBO where they did the cop drama about the Baltimore police. He was crazy on that show. So I just think it's good. Marvel, if you do a good job with your casting, they will keep you as that character. That's one thing that Marvel's good about. They're not like they're not like how it is with the DC universe, where they got two people playing Flash and three people playing Green Lantern and all these other things. 17 Batman. Like, they were like, hey, if you could do this job, we need you to keep doing this job. We will pay you. Just come on down, do your 3 months or whatever. So I think this is a great choice. He completely captures that, like, vigilante vibe. So, I think it's a good casting, and I'm happy to see him back. So, and I saw on the internet, everybody's happy. So, yeah, what you think?
So here's where I'm at. As I said, this is going to be unlike many of the other series that we've had thus far with our Marvel characters. And let's be honest, when it comes to those series, that some have been hit or miss. Some have been great, and others have been mediocre at best. But still, I do appreciate the fact that Marvel, tried this. That's how they've been able to expand and be able to carry on as long as they have, is because they haven't really, rested on their laurels. And a lot of times they've tried different things, whether it's within their own individual franchises. A lot of times they are, delving into specific genres. If we're picturing, the Captain America franchise, a lot of it is very
Mm-hmm.
spy thriller-esque. If we're
Mm-hmm.
picturing kind of the Thor franchise, when it first started, people kind of forget this, but it kind of got into a lot of Shakespearean type of themes, in
Mm-hmm.
terms of like grandiose kind of Shakespearean type of themes. But then it delved into a lot of like weird fantasy elements as well. So, and with some of the other characters too, we've had characters that are far more grounded versus those that are kind of larger than life and kind of crazy or ridiculous. I mean, gosh, we have a talking tree
Mm-hmm.
and a talking raccoon. Like, need we say more? But
Right.
still, I still tip my hat off in the fact that they are trying different things, and a lot of people forget this. While I will agree with many that the phase 4 hasn't been you know as strong as the other phases, we have to also understand that that was the end of an arc. There were characters that may cross over and may continue on, but there are a lot of characters who finished their arc, and so we are essentially starting from square one again, We're starting from the status quo again, as we're going through this, multiverse saga. And guess what? We probably are going to go through it again once the multiverse saga is over, because it will probably most more than likely it is we'll probably delve into a lot of the mutant stuff. My guess
Hmm.
is, I have no proof of this, but uh, if I was a betting man, I would say that we're gonna really dive into mutants, to the X-Men, to the Fantastic Four. Even though we're going to get, don't get me wrong, we're probably going to get an introduction to the Fantastic Four. We're really going to delve into that saga of mutants and how where they fit within the landscape of the MCU. We're really probably going
Hmm.
to dig into that once the multiverse is over. And believe it or not, we'll probably also get into that storyline of probably X-Men versus Avengers, I'm guessing.
Yeah, yeah, you
So
could bet money on that.
yeah. So with all that being said, I'm happy to see that Bernthal is back, but I do have a concern, and that is the fact that, as I said, with many of these prior shows when we first started, a lot of them were what? They were 6 episodes, they were 8 episodes. When we were talking about those Netflix shows, a lot of them were maybe 8 or 10 episodes, and even then they were kind of long. I would have preferred a lot of them to be 6 episodes to make the stories tighter. Um, and then when we got into the Disney Plus series, a lot of them were a lot tighter. And in some instances, I would argue that they could have benefited from maybe an episode or more, because they had so much to get through plot wise and story wise within that small finite time. Now with this series, and I don't know if you're aware of this, but this is going to be, from what I understand, confirm it, it's going to be an 18 episode series. So that's huge. And there's a danger of there being a lot of filler episodes, which I don't want. There's going to be the danger of trying to stuff too much into this series, because at this point, I mean, from what I understand, we have Jessica Jones, popping up during this show.
Hmm.
I wouldn't be surprised if we had an announcement that Luke Cage, Michael Colt. I wouldn't be surprised if we hear that he's going to be in here, because a lot of times when it comes to Marvel, they already know who's in it. It's just that after the fact, they let everybody else know and confirm who's in it or not. So who knows?
Hmm.
Like, we may very well have a complete reunion of the Defenders in this series.
Well,
So
I disagree. I have to disagree with you on this one because I think
okay,
that this Born Again, like I said, Born Again is one of the greatest comic book arcs ever. Like, not Marvel arcs, not Daredevil arcs, comic book arcs. Like the Born Again saga, like the whole, like, it's the OG of gritty comic book dramas. Like, most comic books before Born Again were not written like this. They were bad guy, beat them up, we're doing this stuff. But the Born Again storyline really is a character examination that the original Daredevil shows, and a lot of those Marvel Netflix shows, honestly, were. But it's like turned up to the max. It's like Born Again is just, oh, I think the comic books itself, the actual Born Again story, is a 12 story arc, because I think they gave Frank Miller the whole year to do it. He did it over a year, so it's already 12 episodes. And I think that there were a bunch of like, I think I read the comic, the that story arc, the before part, and I think they could do 18 episodes because it's such an immersive story, and there's so many, like, oh, this is happening, oh, this is happening, da 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 da. It's just one of the greatest story arcs ever, and it's just like, it's a story that answers the question, well, what if the Joker found out that Batman was Bruce Wayne? What would he do with this information? How would the world change? And how would these things be different and everything? And it's like, and I think they kind of teased it, how reckless Daredevil has been with himself in that She-Hulk episode, where everybody in that was mad about because they had linked up and he was walking around the streets just like, I know I'm Daredevil, and it's going to be hard for you to figure it out. But really, is it that hard do we really not know? So it's going to be a lot. I think it's going to be a lot better than like I think it's good because so many of these shows have been these streamable shows, and streamable shows are good and everything, but I think that going back to the episodic one episode per week and it builds is better for your like engagement with the public and the reception of the art than just I'm gonna give you 10 hours of something to watch, boom, and then you're gonna watch it over a weekend and you're never gonna talk about it again. Like that's not how you build a buzz, and I think that they're trying to get away from that model. Like the model works because we all been inside, but I think as COVID's ending and everything, people just want to be outside. So it's like weekly works better for everybody. We just want 1 hour. You can get an hour of my time, but 10 hours, I can't be inside no more. Please, Marvel, let me back outside.
Nah, I hear you. I guess the only reason why I bring that up is a lot of times when it comes to a lot of these stories, Marvel is known for this with the other stories that they've told as well, is that people already have an expectation if they're
Mm-hmm.
familiar with the title.
Yeah.
And a lot of times Marvel will subvert those expectations by basically adapting multiple different stories and placing it into a given film. A good case in point, if we're talking about Thor Ragnarok, a lot of what we have with Planet uh
Mm-hmm.
Hawk, Planet Hulk. I can talk today. Planet Hulk. A lot of that is in Thor Ragnarok, and
Yeah.
so we have a lot of those components where they're, even though they have the title of a given run of a story, they may not always stick to the story to a T, and so because the they have all these characters at their disposal, and it seems like they're really trying to reintroduce a lot of these Netflix characters into the MCU. And because they have 18 episodes, it
Mm-hmm.
provides an opportunity to kind of reset the stage of where these characters are and how they fit into the larger narrative of the MCU. So I don't know. I have a feeling that we may, even if it's just like a quick cameo, even if it's like addressing it quickly or saying hey what's up, that they may pop up in there somewhere, even if it's at the end, and maybe at the end of the story arc, he runs into Luke Cage, or they have like a powwow at the end,
Mm-hmm.
talking
Mm-hmm.
about some stuff that they're getting into in the next adventure or the next story arc that they decide to do.
Yeah.
One thing I will say though is, with all these characters that they're bringing back, and you were talking about those that it looks like we won't have back, they need to bring back Elektra, because the actress there, I'll look it up. She was awesome. Same goes for Bullseye, dude that was playing
Oh yeah.
Bullseye. He was outstanding. And I'm gonna look up their names too, but they were terrific in those roles. In
Mm-hmm.
the seasons that we had for Daredevil over on Netflix, and what they were able to bring to those characters was outstanding. This is not a slight to anybody else who's played those roles. They are what they are. But within the context of what they were trying to do with the Daredevil story on Netflix, I feel like they would be a great fit going into um the MCU. And I mean, especially if we're picturing Bullseye, there's so much that they could do with Bullseye story wise. I mean, you could arguably say we're essentially going into the Dark Reign run. We had the Dark Avengers, and if I recall, if I remember my comics correctly, he played a factor, he played a role in during that portion of the story that we saw in the comics with Dark Reign. So it would be,
I'm just going.
I'm hoping that they bring both of those actors back. Um,
I just they have to nail a bullseye for this one. I think they're probably going to bring back what's the name is Kingpin because he's already been Kingpin and
yeah,
other
yeah,
stuff. So
Vincent
obviously he's
D'Onofrio's
still going to be.
confirmed. Yeah, Vincent
Yeah,
D'Onofrio's
yeah.
confirmed. Yeah.
Obviously Vince is going to be Kingpin, but they got to nail bullseye for this arc because again, The things that happen to Daredevil in this story arc is going to be very tweetable, and especially for people who are seeing it for the first time. Like,
Mm-hmm.
oh my god, it's going to be absolutely bananas. Like, and the thing that's good about this, like just like you said with how Marvel adapts stuff, they know how to adapt stuff without like, because there's some things that happen in comic books, like the way that they happen because it's a comic book and because you can go as far as you want to, that don't really translate to the screen, but like
Exactly.
you have to do them. Like the big thing with the Watchmen movie was they didn't exactly capture like the catastrophe that Ozymandias made in the movie, that was truly horrifying to make things change the way that they were supposed to. So you got lost in that. But like Marvel does a good job with like, all right, if we can't introduce certain characters, we'll have other people do what that character did in the story arc or whatever without making it too hokey. Like they made the Infinity Gauntlet saga without all of that celestial stuff to really cloud it, because the celestial stuff in the Infinity Gauntlet in the comic books and the Eros and all that stuff was real left field, and it was like for people who have been reading them comic books, and that's not a character they introduced. To introduce that other character and that whole next part of the world would have been so hokey and different that you couldn't really like it would have lost a lot of the audience. But like as they've moved on and they get into more characters who are cosmically based, they're introducing more of those cosmic characters, like and making them into stars. So I think they know what they're doing. They definitely. That's why I've always been a bigger Marvel fan than a DC fan. I'm sorry, you DC fans. I know y'all love your Batman, but Marvel just does a so much better job of these storytellings and the weaving of the universe together and everything. Just you can't do without them.
Yeah, fair deal, fair deal. All right, so uh, moving away from our two stories, one with Beetlejuice and the other with Daredevil Born Again. I want to talk about an event that is happening as we speak right now. As I said, right now I'm at Annapolis Comic Con, which I'll get into, as we start to wrap up this episode of This Week in Review. But also happening this starting this weekend and going into the week is South by Southwest. So if you guys are not familiar, with South by Southwest, the event in essence, basically allows you to celebrate a mixture of tech, of film, and music. Areas that I'm very passionate about. As you guys know, I'm passionate about my tech. You know that I go to CES and other tech shows, and I have a lot of I have tech related topics on here. Same goes with film. I don't think I need to spend too much time on that. I love film with the coverage that we do on film festivals and even other pop culture shows that incorporate all aspects of film and TV and things of that nature, and music as well, because I love music. But one thing that I would say that I'm very much passionate about is um, scores. So if we're talking about films, I'm super geeky when it comes to scores of many iconic films and the composers behind a lot of those iconic scores and themes that we recognize, from various films where, if you hear it, you immediately, know what the music is from. And I mean, you could talk about Star Wars. You hear it, you know exactly that it is the score from Star Wars. You hear the score for Batman, from Tim Burton's Batman. You know that is Batman. And I can go on and on and on. But tomorrow we actually will have, even though I won't physically be there, we will have some virtual exclusives to share with you guys. So be on the lookout for that. It's going to happen around 3 o'clock. If that changes, I will let you guys know. But just wanted to give you a heads up about that. Even though we're going to be virtual this coming year, I'll give you a heads up that I do plan going forward to physically be there. So that should be fun. But at least for this year, we will be doing it virtually. Spillman, I'm sure you've heard of South by Southwest. What are your thoughts, on the event? And yeah, I'll punt it over to you.
I've always wanted to go to South by Southwest because they've like you said with some of the music acts. Like I know that there's a lot of like up and comers that go there. A lot of people get their first real national buzz through the South by Southwest. I've heard really good things about Austin, Texas. I've always wanted to go. My cousin used to live out near there, and he's always told me how nice it is out there. So I've always been like, oh yeah, definitely want to check it out. I know that they do the tech stuff, so it's like the tech, the music, the movies, the whole thing. It's all the things that I like. I like technology and movies and especially I love live music and I like the opportunity to see people that I probably would never get the chance to see. As a big as the resident big man on the pick and roll, I love to go to concerts because I don't have no problem with no view any house I'm in. So I definitely like to go to those kind of things. I like craft beers, and I hear they got all the delicious craft beers down there. So I hope that the weekend review will do an episode from there so I could get my
Oh,
big
for
man on
sure,
down there.
for
Oh
sure,
yeah, that's what we
for
got to
sure.
do.
That's
We
a
got to
bet.
do that.
That's a bet. That's a
Got
bet.
to do that.
Yeah,
So
yeah.
that sounds like a plan. But I just the whole South by Southwest movement. It's a great movement. It's pushed a lot of culture. And especially in the last 10, 15 years, they've really been doing big things. South by Southwest. I think Kanye got real big down South by Southwest too. So everybody's done a lot in South by Southwest. So excited for this year. Hopefully everything goes off without a hitch. Everybody has a good time and everybody's is taking care of each other.
I was gonna say for sure, for sure. I mean, it's such an interesting, as I said, marriage of um different types of interests and
Mm-hmm.
fandoms. It a lot of times when we're going to events is very niche. If you're going to an event, it's because it's for a specific reason. Only time that I can think of where any other example where there is such a mixture of different fandoms if you're going to a pop culture convention. And it's only certain ones that are like that, because I mean, even with your Comic Cons, you very much have a different vibe and a different feel when it comes to those shows. Some are very pop culture heavy and they mix up a lot of things, and others are very they really go back to the roots of Comic-Con and are very much focused on comics and not really on any other ancillary things outside of comic books. So it doesn't really delve that
Mm-hmm.
far into film and TV. And while you have other events that very much dive into that. So it's really just based on what your interest is. But um yeah, like I said, it's I know you were talking about that. You said you had a relative who lived out there. So if we're talking about that event, if you guys aren't familiar, it's in, as you can see there, in Austin, Texas. I'm a foodie too, so I want to
Mm-hmm.
dig into some barbecue also. So whenever I'm traveling
Mm-hmm.
somewhere, I always want to get into a lot of the cuisine there also.
Oh
um
yeah. And the
so
Tito's distillery is down there, so you definitely got to get
yeah,
a
man.
bottle of vodka for your baby girl. The ladies like the vodka sodas. Some
so
Tito's.
so yeah, for sure, man, for sure. And that's a bet. Getting there physically, we will for sure. I will keep you guys posted about doing a live show there, and I'll keep you guys a win of doing a live stream, just as we're doing now at Annapolis Comic Con. Did you have any other final thoughts before we hop into the last of our stories?
Oh no, let's go to the next one.
All right, bet. So this week, if any of those things are not enough with all the things that are going on, we do have a little like small, award show, little small award show happening tomorrow, and that's none other than the Academy Awards. There, a lot of films, a lot of performances that were incredible, over the course of the year, and it'll be exciting to see which if a lot of if we see a lot of new faces, taking home the Oscar, or if that momentum will continue with many of the those folks that were nominated. So, I had a chance to see a couple of additional films um, since last week, and it still hasn't really changed, my guesses or my assumptions of who's going to win. But Spill, what are your thoughts on a lot of the folks that performances that were nominated, or even a lot of the films that are nominated?
Well, I think, um, I think the Everything Always Everywhere, that's the name of it. This is the one I talked about it last week. I didn't remember the name of this movie, so please, listeners and viewers, don't come for me in the comments. But the one that is going to win is, I think, still going to win. I think that's going to be the movie of the year, just with like how I'm looking at things trending, going online, and how the views of the people are. Um, I don't think that it will be as memeable as last year's show. I don't think that that's going to happen,
Oh
because
God.
last year's show was the most memeable Oscars in a long time. Like that was like the 2003 Super Bowl of Oscar moments. Like it just, oh, obviously, I'm interested to watch just because something crazy might happen, like something crazy happened last year. Um, but I guess we could talk a little bit about, what the Oscars are going to be this year. I think they're going to be, it'll be a lot more subdued than last year. But I think that if we could just, people, I think the people that we've talked about that's nominated, I think Rihanna might win one this year. Do you think Rihanna might win one this year?
I think she might win. It would be great to see her win. To have with all the momentum that has happened with Black Panther, it would be nice to see her win.
Hmm.
To have that single win. Uh, it has, and I've seen Black Panther multiple times. I don't know if you have, if you only did the one viewing, but whenever that song is played, is never a dry in the house, never.
Hmm.
So, with that being said, and to have a song that, speaks that much to people and has the impact, no matter what audience you're seeing it with, the impact that it does, there's something to be said about that. It's a beautiful song, but again, like I said, there are a lot of songs that I feel that kind of transcend,
Hmm.
just simply the genre that it is, but
Yeah.
the message that it has, and what it's about. So, I feel like that single from Black Panther is an example of that. So I do have, I do believe that song will in fact win. Um, Now, in going over some of the nominations, and let me see if I can share this right now. I'm going to share up, excuse me, the list out of Variety. I'm going to not go over every single nomination, but I want to go over a few of them, of some of my guesses.
The
Um,
marquees, as we say.
well, I would say if you're nominated, just point blank, that's a huge, honor, to be recognized in that in that manner. So let me see here, sharing. There we go. So in pulling this up now, let me see if I can get this up here in the time that I have. Okay, should be up. Okay. All right. So in um, looking at these nominations, see if I can get it up here. Here we go. So for the nominations that we have here, if we're talking about like best picture, I have, for me, I would say Everything Everywhere All at Once is my selection to
Hmm.
be able to win. I loved,
Although
and I've seen a lot of the films here. I've seen, Top Gun Maverick was great. The Fablemans was great. Elvis, it's very
that Elvis
visually,
movie, that
it's
Tom
very,
Hanks in Elvis, if they had a bad guy like if they gave away a bad guy award at the Oscars, Tom Hanks would win this year because he was so slimy in that movie. And Tom Hanks is never a slimy dude in movies. He was so slimy in that movie. I've never seen Tom. I was like Tom Hanks, like the,
But
Tom
here's my
Hanks with
thing
the
though.
Tom Hanks. Oh my gosh.
But I'm just saying, here's my thing though. I mean, you have a lot of films on here that are, great achievements in terms of
Mm-hmm.
a lot of, what they're trying to say visually in terms, or to say technically in terms of the achievements that they've accomplished. I mean,
Mm-hmm.
Avatar technically in terms of
Yep.
the technical work, in and the huge endeavor it was to be able to produce and make that film is such a big undertaking. So it was quite an achievement to have all of that come together with all the components that it took to be able to make that film. As I said, Elvis visually stunning, in terms of the visual flair that was used in order to put that story together. A lot of times when you have a biopic, it's very easy to kind of, because you're so focused on making it,
Look
serious
like the
or talking.
person.
Not even that. I'm saying a
Yeah.
lot of times when you're talking about biopics, don't get me wrong, the performances are great, but sometimes like visually it can be kind of dull to look at. And I you
Yeah.
can't make that you can't say that about Elvis at all.
No, that
Like I
movie.
said, it's
Oh,
very visually stunning.
yeah.
So
Then they got.
that film is. Go ahead.
I was gonna say, oh, that film was crazy. Also, but there's other films too because this is a pretty wide. This is a much wider. Like
It
this
is.
year is a much
It is.
wider gamut of types of movies. Like the Banshees
It
of
is.
Inisherin, that was a movie that was like the traditional Best Picture Oscar because it's a character study.
Right.
It's a lot of soliloquies and whatnot. So it's like they've got all kinds of stuff. I've seen a couple of these other movies, but I just I think you're right. Everything, everywhere, all the time. I think that's going to be the win, obviously. Um, but I would
And I was
want
going to
Elvis to
say,
win.
just in general, a lot of going back to what I was talking about at the top is a lot of times you have a lot of momentum going into the award show,
Hmm.
and a lot of that can kind
Hmm.
of indicate, how the other shows are going to go. And um, outside of the fact that everything, everywhere, all at once is an incredible film, it has so much momentum going into this show that it's hard
Yep.
to picture another film that's going to dethrone it come tomorrow. Um,
Hmm.
so like that would be my pick for best picture. Now, just as you were talking about when we're talking about a lot of these films and the expansion of a lot of the films that are nominated, a lot of times what you'll see also is that you'll have they'll utilize best director and best picture to kind of split the winners, if
Hmm.
you will, if they can't really choose among that's at least that's how it appears a lot of times when they can't choose between two given films that are kind of neck and neck. They'll give the best director to the director of one film, and then they'll give best picture
Hmm.
to another film. So with that in mind, for me, I hope that Daniel Kwan uh, uh, wins, and Daniel, and I apologize if I'm butchering your name, man, but Daniel Schneider win for everywhere, all at once. I want them to win, but they may very well give it. I wouldn't be surprised if they give it to Steven Spielberg, just by the fact a lot of times, just the story or that narrative, a lot of times we'll see if it's something about someone's life and someone kind of is
Hmm.
inspiring something about their life, or if they're talking about old Hollywood, a lot of times
Yeah,
there's a
definitely.
love of those types of narratives, so that he may very well win it for that fact. But again, the two Daniels, everything everywhere all at once. I'm still, rooting for them to be able to win. But I wouldn't be surprised if we see a surprise there and Steven Spielberg, ends up taking home the Oscar, for that film. Because I feel like even though it's a I enjoyed the film a lot, but sometimes you just have those, as I said, you just have those behemoths that just have that snowball of momentum going into the show, and a lot of times they can overshadow a lot of other films that are good, but you know you can't really dispute everything. So um, now for some of the performances, are there any ones specifically, if you're thinking in on some of those performances that you had a chance to check out? I had a chance to finally check out Brendan Fraser in The Whale. Man, such a hard watch, really hard watch, but man, his performance is incredible in that film. But were there any for you that really stuck out that that either you are you have to win, or you're rooting for to win?
I still say Tom Hanks as that strange Eastern European, Western European man that made Elvis fall for all of the traps, all of the traps. That man, like, he's just because, like, there's certain actors that you associate with certain kinds of characters, and Tom Hanks has always been a main character, good guy, in everything he's in. You never see him like be mean or anything, but the slimy ways that he was digging into Elvis Presley in this movie made it clear as to why Elvis died so young. It's because he had that slimy dude who was draining him for everything. And it just, oh, he found the goose that laid the. That's really, and the thing that's crazy about the Elvis movie is really not about Elvis. It's about Tom Hanks's character. Tom Hanks's character in that movie is the man who found the goose that laid the golden egg. And he's just running around trying to squeeze as many eggs out of this goose, no matter what happens to it. So, by the end of the movie, Elvis is foie gras. That's just what happens. We all know the story of Elvis. It's not like I'm giving away spoilers here. I think that was a good one. And then the Banshees of Inisherin, Colin Farrell and the guy that played the wonky-eyed dude on Harry Potter. What's that guy's name? But anyway, they give the two of the most, like, it's just it's like it's a period piece. People that are people that, so I guess one of those guys is going to get a supporting actor role, Oscar win. You bet. I bet money on this one because it's a period piece. They all got their normal accents, so no one's talking like a American. Um, it's got nice set pieces that's on the Irish coast, and it's windswept, and everybody looks sad. Everything is in muted colors and everything, and those always win. And I think also, All's Quiet on the Western Front may win some stuff because the Academy loves war movies. We all know that they love a good war movie, and everything all along the Western Front is a classic book, and the adaptation was really good. So you know, that I think those are the three that I think are going to be big winners this evening.
Let me see. All right, cool. Now I'm actually gonna. Looks like our guest is here, so I'm gonna bring him over for a moment.
All right, cool.
If you guys are familiar with the Night Watchman, I want to welcome back onto the show, Mr. Ken Arnold. Let me bring him on now. See if he can fit in here. What's going on, man?
Hey, how are you, Brandon? Good to see you, man. It's good.
All right, so
What's
we were
going
just
on?
talking about, and this is Spill Ken Spills. So we were talking, Ken, about the Oscars. I had a chance to check out a couple of additional films. Thankfully, before tomorrow, there were some incredible performances. I was just talking to Spillman that I finally had a chance to see, The Whale, and see Brendan Fraser's performance in that. For you, are there any films that stick out, or even performances, that you have maybe you're rooting for to win, or perhaps that you have winning?
I mean, from the award show so far this year, I mean, Everything Everywhere All at Once. I mean, that film is phenomenal. I loved it. The first time I saw it, a lot of people were like, "Man, yeah." But when I watched it the first time, I was like, "This thing is incredible," because there's so many things going on. Each actor has to play a different version of themselves throughout the film, like 3, 4, 5, even 5 versions of themselves, and it's just an incredible. All the way around, the writing, the directing, the acting, everything was fantastic, and I really enjoyed it. And hopefully it'll win most of the awards.
Hopefully. I was just talking to Spillman that a lot of times when we're talking about these award shows, sometimes it's the narrative what we're talking about. It may be because we're talking about old Hollywood. It may be because of the personal aspect of the story. If we're talking about Steven Spielberg with the Fablemans, or it's just that momentum. It's just a snowball momentum. A lot of times with some projects that they are just basically a collecting snowball that is just gaining that momentum, and sometimes even though they're incredible films, in that lineup of nominees, you just can't get beyond that behemoth of that momentum. As I said, Everything Everywhere All at Once is incredible, and I hope that it wins. But there are some other incredible films in there that have been nominated. I have, Michelle and company. I have them with the performances that we have nominated there, having them win. I'm hoping Angela Bassett wins. That'd be huge for a Marvel movie. I love my comic books, folks.
She's always fantastic. She's always fantastic. Anything she's ever done, she's incredible in. And again, this performance was great as well. Yes.
Yeah. And I mean, it's fun. It's great. Not to say that Angela has never gotten her due, but I still feel like she is very much underrated as a performer, with other performances that she's had, in her body of work that I feel don't get enough credit. So it's good a lot of the, now if we're talking sports, that she's finally getting her flowers, finally. But as I said, outside of Everything Everywhere All at Once, are there some other performances for you that have, and I know it's a tight rate, there are a lot of incredible ones in there, but are there some other ones that kind of speak to you?
I mean, Brandon Fraser, he's amazing. Brendan Fraser, I'm sorry, Brandon. I said Brandon. But The Whale it's a hard film to watch, but his performance is phenomenal, and the surrounding characters as well. I mean, everybody in that film is fantastic, but it's just a hard film to watch. Everything Everywhere All at Once had a little bit more of a happy ending, in a way. So, but that film ends in such a way that you're just like, oh, I really like everybody's performance, but the film itself made me uncomfortable.
Yes.
So I can't go and say, all right, Oscar, although it's Oscar worthy, and that's why it's there.
Yes.
Bill Nighy in Living.
Yes.
He was fantastic in that. Now, I talk about because I get the SAG screeners, the SAG awards. So I don't know, and I think he's nominated, right, Bill Nighy for actor Oscar. But yeah, he was really great in that film. Just an incredible performance by him. But again, it's a very slow film, but it's shot so beautifully. And if they don't win for maybe costumes or cinematography or editing, the music was incredible. Everything in it was so tight. And the Oscars, Oscars does everything. The only thing it doesn't do is casting, right? Shouldn't they be doing that? I think they do the stunts now, right? They finally did that. But casting and, casting directors, they deserve, because they're artists as well, and they deserve an Oscar category, and hopefully they'll get it soon. They just had their awards, the Audios Awards 2 nights ago, I think it was. And, they deserve that Oscar category. So hopefully they'll get it soon.
For sure. Now, I was talking about that just a moment ago, too. For those of you who are joining us and Kent as well, a lot of times when we have such a tight race, it's always interesting. Sometimes what we'll see is that we'll see a split of some of the wins. So a lot of times if we're talking Best Picture and Director, sometimes we'll see a split of, if they can't really choose, it seems like, choose between two films that are neck and neck, they'll give an Oscar to the director, and then they'll give another film best picture a lot of times. So for me, I had potentially, as a surprise for Best Director, I had Steven Spielberg potentially winning, since it's such a personal story. But I, as I said, we can go on and on and on about it. Everything Everywhere All at Once, I have winning Best Picture. I have them winning Best Director as well. But just like I said, because of that narrative of how personal a story it is for Steven to do that, do his film, he may potentially surprise everyone and steal the win for Best Director. Are there any other technical awards that come to mind for you that really stick out as ones that they are a shoe-in, or maybe they are right there as a potential winner?
It's so difficult now with CGI being what it is to say, okay, Wakanda Forever, it's amazing what they do in those movies now. and it should win in the special effects category. But will it? You know, probably not.
Yeah.
You know, but they'll give it to something that's probably a little more arty. Or like, you know what I'm saying?
Right.
Instead of the Marvel movie. And I never quite got that with the Harry Potter movies and all that. And they always had the highest end CGI and all of that and the cinematography. And you always would think that those films should get more attention during the Oscars, but they don't. So I don't know. You know, it's a tough decision. You know, I like the cinematography. The Fablemans was fantastic.
Yes.
But I just don't think it's better than Everything Everywhere All at Once. I just don't think it is. I think Living was shot better than Fablemans, but because Spielberg, he's the same with he uses the same guy.
Yeah.
Kaminsky, you know, yeah, it's and he uses the same guy. So, you know, which was the one cool thing in my career. I got to be a stand-in on Minority Report.
Okay,
So
yeah,
I got to watch Spielberg and Kaminsky work together closely, and I was only standing 2-3 feet from him the whole time. So it was amazing. It was fantastic. It was like film school, man. It was amazing. But you know, if he does win, if Spielberg gets Best Director, who's going to argue? You know, okay, he's arguably one of the best directors of all time. So yeah, who's going to argue?
Awesome. So as I said, we have you hopping in here, Ken, and super appreciate you, hopping in your neighborhood, so to speak. We're in here in Annapolis, and I know is this your first time at Annapolis Comic Con, man?
No, I came, when they first started out, and when they were at a different venue. This is actually my church. This is where my kids were,
there you go.
Baptized here and everything in this church, the Greek church in Annapolis, and I'm here all the time. So yeah.
Awesome. Small world. So, have you had a chance to wander around a bit? If not, then we can have you, wander around a bit and then come on back, because we do have a couple other folks that are hopping in with us. I'm assuming, since you were able to sneak in here, that perhaps you were just hopping in as when I first saw you. Is that correct?
Yes.
Okay. So, all right. We're
gonna head around and check some things out, but I'll swing back around and see, what you got going on.
Awesome. Sounds good. So again, we'll have Ken hop back on the show. Ken, man, thanks so much, and I'll see you in a bit. Okay. All right. So, okay. So if we're hopping back into our story on Annapolis Comic Con, I feel like that's a great transition going into that. Just as Ken was saying, the venue that they have it's the same venue that I was at before. It's the Byzantium. Let me just make sure I'm confirming that. But yeah, Byzantium. That they have a Byzantium church that's over in Annapolis. But in terms of the format that a lot of times see with Comic Cons these days, the more modern Comic Cons are dealing with a lot more than comic books, because we see, as I was mentioning at the top of the show, a lot more ancillary things that are somewhat related to the source material of your comic books, whether it's a TV adaptation, a film adaptation. And if we're talking business wise, it's a good draw to be able to bring in a lot of these actors and things from those projects to talk about those said films, or say it's just those said IPs or those projects. But this show is, I would say, a lot more focused on comics and what you would normally perceive with your a given Comic-Con, in terms of the roots of Comic-Con and what a Comic-Con is about. You have with any other show, and I'm gonna kind of expand over my camera. You have vendors, you have other. Let me see if I could take this off just for a second, just so I can show you guys. But you have, see if I can show that here. Yeah, you have vendors
it's got the Proton
in
pack.
extensive space. Yeah. So we have vendors and things of that nature, just as you would normally expect at a Comic-Con. There's tons of cosplay, happen, some impressive cosplay, which if you guys stay tuned, I more than likely will, be putting it up on YouTube Shorts If you guys have been enjoying a lot of the cosplay YouTube shorts that I normally do, it'll be posted up there, which you'll be able to find right now since you guys are already, here on the platform over on YouTube. And we're going to have a couple of other folks, hop in outside of Ken. I wanted to have Ken hop on because, if you guys are familiar, as I said with Ken, he's someone who really does his thing in terms of what he's done in the industry here locally, in the film industry locally, not only as an actor, as a producer, as a director, as a writer. And we're right in his neighborhood since he is in Annapolis. So I figured we would have him, on the show. And like I said, we'll have him back in a moment. We'll have a couple of other extra guests. I'm gonna try to see if we can get Steve Anderson over here, who is the owner of Third Eye Comics. But I'll put it over to you, Spim. I know you're not physically here, so it's a kind of a different dynamic. But did you have any like questions or any other like thoughts on Annapolis Comic Con?
So I haven't been to the Annapolis Comic Con, but I'm a huge comics fan, obviously. I've got a little bit of expertise on everything. But I just, it's good to see, that we are able to celebrate the medium of comic books and, just enjoy it the way that we see it rather than, just being ashamed of our comic book liking because in the past times before the internet, liking comic books, you might get beat up and hang upside down and they take all your change out your pockets and stuff, and that's just a horrible way to feel. So it's good that we can enjoy ourselves and commiserate with our fellow nerds and comic book fans and blurs and all kinds of other words we use to describe ourselves these days. But you know it's taken over the world. Everybody loves the characters. Everybody loves the really the morals and the ideas of these characters, and that's what's really most important. And I just enjoy that we're able to broadcast these. We're able to talk about these different shows and everything. If it weren't for Comic Cons, they wouldn't say, "Hey, let's make a movie about that," because we see enough people asking us. I think we can make some money on that, man. If we just do it right, we'll make some money. And then we'll go to Comic Con and tell us if we did it right. And then we'll use it as our own focus group. So it's awesome to see that. So, yeah.
Yeah, for sure. It's always, and this is shout out to showrunner Ben Penrod. If you guys, are not familiar with Ben Penrod, you are familiar with his work. He has not just this show, Annapolis Comic Con, but also Southern Maryland Comic Con. And he also had a hand in founding Awesome Con as well, and as well as many others. So, he's not a stranger, to what it takes to make an effective Comic Con, and all the facets that go into that. I've had him on the show before and talking about all the challenges that it takes, whether it's on the operational end, whether it's on the guests end. I feel like you could dedicate a whole show, on each facet of a Comic Con, whether it's operations of how your show is going to be set up, where people are, where possible attendees are able to go to different parts of the show, who you're going to have overseeing certain aspects of your show. There's so many moving parts. If you're talking about programming, if you're talking about volunteers, if you're talking about other facets, like just other things, even with the vendors that you have, the exhibitors that you have. If it's with the, like I said, I went back to guests of the negotiating that goes into getting guests at a lot of these shows. That's a huge undertaking and a huge investment. So hats off to him in terms of still having this show, because he's not he doesn't rest on his laurels, and he has tons of shows that he does that are huge behemoths versus
Mm-hmm.
this show that is way more niche and way more intimate than those big behemoths. he has shows that are very much geared into that pop culture realm of having a lot of media guests, and he has shows like these that are far like I said, far more intimate, and I can appreciate both. There's something to be said of something that you can appreciate about being able to, no, don't get me wrong, there are a lot of people here, but still being able to comfortably walk around the space versus
Hmm.
being shoulder to shoulder and all crunched up, trying to like finagle and fidget through, different folks and fellow fans and attendees that are trying to get to whatever their destination is. I love Comic Con, and as you guys know, if as I'm talking about Comic Con, I'm talking about SDCC. I love San Diego Comic Con. As you know, I go there every year. It's just, it's nice to have that variety of having something that's chill versus something that is very hustle bustle and dense. I feel like that dense in terms of like room capacity of trying to get from point A to point B. Now, I don't think we delved into this a whole bunch, Spillman. Is I know you've had a chance to over the course of your time go to various cons, but I don't think we really delved into which local ones within the DC metropolitan area that you yourself have frequented in your time of attending shows.
Well, I've gone to the Awesome Con. I liked Awesome Con. That was pretty cool. Um, I like them. I think that one's pretty big. There's another one that they have. Is it like I think it's maybe Ultra or something like that, where it's like one where it's more for cosplayers that they have every year. Um,
Hold on. Are you talking
that
about
one.
KatsuCon? Is it KatsuCon out in
Yeah,
National Harbor?
yeah, I think that one.
Okay.
Yeah, I've heard that one. They had that one. But DC's pretty big for conventions and stuff. It's not a place where luckily we're one of those dots on the map, so we get a little bit more than we should for the size of our population. Like if we were like a Midwest city, we probably wouldn't get as much stuff as we do, but because it's got a hub and everything and it's got the infrastructure, we're lucky in that way. So I like a lot of that stuff. They're just fun to go to. It's fun to see the fans, to see what people put together. um Unfortunately, as a bigger person, I have to make my own costume, so I've never made one.
Yeah,
Maybe
we
we could
didn't
get
we
one
haven't shared
together.
this on the show. I'm about to say we haven't shared this on the show yet, guys. But yeah, like Spillman, he's like 6'7", so he's not a short
I'm
dude. He's a
huge.
big dude.
So I've been thinking about doing like Alien or something. I really feel like I could scare the mess out of some people at the Comic Cons if I
Or
go as an
Jason,
alien,
there
or
you
maybe
go.
another big
Jason's
character.
not
Yeah,
short.
Jason or something, pop up on somebody, be like, oh no, this is terrifying. So that could be fun. But so I'm thinking about doing that maybe. But as I move into more of this movers and shakers unlimited universe, I'll probably delve into it a little bit more. So viewers keep we can make a poll for Bill's
We
first
absolutely
cosplay.
can.
We
Yeah,
could
we
we
can
could
put a poll on
figure it
YouTube.
out.
Yeah, I'll try to put a poll up
Yeah.
and see if you guys have a preference. And as you know, I'm not a big. I have a huge. Don't get it twisted. I have a huge appreciation for cosplayers, and I marvel at the dedication that it takes to put the costumes together and how cool they look. It's just that me personally putting them on is
We got
I
to, all
just
right. That's another poll
practically
we got, ladies and
about to
gentlemen.
say that's
Another
just
poll we got together.
practically
That's right. I'm gonna get them into it, ladies and gentlemen.
I'm about to say practically wearing it as much as carrying, as you can see, carrying equipment around and doing other things around in the show. I don't know, and then on top of that, if we're picturing cons, I know like these days, we have cons year round, but when you're really picturing the comic book conventions that I'm thinking about, those events a lot of times is in warmer weather, and so
Oh
to
yeah.
be able to be lugging all that around and carrying all of that around in hot weather, while you're getting from point A to point B. And don't get me wrong, a lot of the venues are well conditioned, have air conditioning and all that, but you're not going to always be inside a lot of the times. A lot of times you are out in heat. So I don't know, man.
Ladies and
Maybe,
gentlemen,
maybe,
he's
maybe,
alligator arming us.
maybe,
Got his
maybe,
alligator arm. He's like,
maybe,
I'm not going to do it,
maybe,
but we'll get him to do it, ladies and gentlemen. Don't worry. I'm gonna convince him.
maybe.
I'm gonna.
There's a
He could
reason.
be Han
There's a
Solo. You could be
reason.
Han Solo. I could be Chewbacca. And we do a show like that.
But I was say, yeah, there's a reason why you guys probably see me wear it around. It's like one of my favorite shirts. It says, "This is my cosplay. I am original character." I love
That's
that
right.
shirt so much.
But no, we're gonna get you.
yeah.
We're gonna get you. Don't worry, ladies and gentlemen. We're gonna do a
Okay.
reverse
All right,
cosplay.
that's
He
a
said that he
challenge.
would have Michael B. Jordan play him. He's gonna play Creed, ladies and gentlemen.
Hey, I can pull it off. I can pull it
that'll
off.
be
Don't
cool.
sleep.
It'll be
I
cool
can pull
too.
that off,
You have
y'all.
no shirt on, so you can be
Basketball
cool.
player.
There
Yeah,
you go.
that's how. Yeah. Me. If you don't know that about me and Spill, that we play basketball. We have that. I know you were hearing us in the prior episode talking about basketball, but that's a other connection that we have is I love a basketball, and I don't know, I can pull that off. I played a lot of basketball. I can still pull off, being looking like a boxer. I don't know. I may be
There
able to
you
do
go.
that. I may be able to do that.
There you go. But again,
So
we're going to get them, ladies and gentlemen. We're going to find a way. Listen, viewers, listen to me carefully. We're going to find a way. I've been seeing him for all these years go to all these cons with no costume. He's no cost, but we're going to get him to
oh yeah,
cost. We will.
awesome. I got a T-shirt that has a big S on
No,
it.
sir, ladies and gentlemen. Hashtag get Brandon the cost. Hashtag get Brandon the cost. That's what we're going to do, ladies and gentlemen. And don't worry. It's going to happen. We're going to
Okay,
have all
so
the
we're gonna
people
make that
write
a
in.
thing. Okay, are we making
All
that a
the people.
hashtag?
It's going to be a thing for sure.
Okay, all right,
For sure.
Okay, all right. So be that as it may, guys. I'm gonna wrap it up here just temporarily. We're gonna do a couple of other episodes, but Spill, I know you. Assuming you need to head off, so we will cap it off at least for this episode or this portion of this week in review. As I said, we'll have some other components where we will be bringing on some guests momentarily that are currently here at Annapolis Comic Con. But with that being said, thank you guys so much for watching this week in review. Man, again, I can talk today. Thank you so much for watching this week in review. I'm going to punt it over to you, Spillman. Can you tell folks where they can find you, sir?
Yes, ladies and gentlemen, you can find me on the illustrious Instagram page. I do not have a click the link in the bio, so don't ask for that information. I saw too many of you asking that this weekend. This last week, there's too many of you guys doing that. Stay out of my inbox, ladies and gentlemen. You can see me on Instagram.
Going into the
Truly
DMs.
Spill. That's right. All of y'all, leave me alone. Please stop messaging me. Stop messaging me. I'm a spoken for man. Leave me alone. But again, it's Truly Spill at Instagram. It's TRUL Spill, SPILL. So you see it on the screen right there, ladies and gentlemen. You can look me up. But please, there's no other information on there but pictures. Don't get weird. It's a strange place. The internet.
Wow. We need to talk, bro. We need to talk. I ain't realize.
We'll
wow.
We'll talk. I'm famous now because I'm doing this. I'm doing this podcast, and now I'm famous.
Okay. Now. All right. Again, want to thank co-host Spillman. I'm your host, Brandon Choi, host and co-creator of Movers and Shakers Unlimited. You can find me on Twitter at Brandon Choi ENT, which you see down below. But you can also find me on Instagram at Brandon Choi _ ENT. And let's see, is there anything else? Yes. So tomorrow, I know we were talking briefly about Oscars. I'm kind of thinking about doing an Oscar show, for you guys just prior to the show to really dig into I know we kind of teased it a little bit here, but really digging into a lot of the nominations and my reasons for, who's going to win. So that way we can really see at the show, how many of my guesses or my picks are right. But other than that too, just know that tomorrow, as always, we will be getting into Star Trek. Right now, the show that we've been talking about and discussing has been none other than Picard. If you guys have been following Picard, as you guys know, it is the final season. So we will be talking about the most recent episode this week. And we have some cool guests. I don't want to spoil it for you guys, but we have some really cool guests, some cool co-hosts. Since we have our co-host Chris Pabon, our connoisseur. He's going to be out this week, so we will have Josh, and we will have a couple of awesome special co-hosts for you guys come tomorrow. So be on the lookout for that. That'll be 11:30 a.m. Our time, ET, but it will be 8:30 Pacific time if you guys are over on the West Coast. But with that out of the way, as I said, thank you guys so much for watching this episode of This Week in Review. We will see you guys next week. Make sure you're here with us next week. We're going to probably start the show a little later. So I will keep you guys a win of when that is. More likely it will be around 2 o'clock going into next week. So that way you guys aren't looking for us like, what's up? Like, why aren't you guys up? It will more than likely be a little later in the afternoon come next week. But I will make sure to specify that time before the said show next week. So thank you guys so much for watching. Be safe out there and see you soon.
Peace.
Peace.
Peace. Hashtag Brandon Cosplay. Hashtag Brandon Cosplay.